Podcaster, I hardly know her.
Welcome to the I Hardly Know Her podcast, hosted by me, Megan McCaleb. If there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's that I still have a lot to learn. This podcast is your invitation to expand your understanding on all sorts of topics and shake things up a little bit. Listen in and learn something new from the stories, professional insights, and a wide range of expertise shared by me and my incredible guests. And remember, my friends, you don't have to be a big deal to do big things. Hello, friends. I'm starting off today's episode feeling particularly giggly, and I'm not really sure why, other than probably because I have some very fun guests coming on today who are in kind of my like professional coaching space, which is really fun when you have peers who are really driven, focused on goals, and we're able to collaborate sometimes several times a week in kind of like that safe space of like, what are our big ideas? Like the bigger, the better. And to rally around other women who are very goal oriented and are so like resolved in who they are, that they help cheer other people on. And that is a vibe that I really enjoy, because growing a business can be really challenging. And sometimes when you dream really big, it can feel overwhelming. And so I am really excited because I've gotten a chance to also be a guest for some of their coaching clients. And so I'm going to be bringing here to the stage. These gals are powerhouses, and they really are passionate about helping people understand how to really have a standout brand. They help people become truly unmistakable in what they do as a thought leader in their individual industries, and to make sure that everything is really strategic with brand positioning, so that when people plop over onto your social media, they know immediately what you do. They know how you're going to show up. Your character and quality just can really shine through with that consistency. So without further ado, I want to bring on these powerhouse gals who help people just like you, listeners, should you choose to embark down that path, if you haven't already, or if you are building your own empire on that end and you want to understand how to get a little more of a competitive edge and amplify that revenue, you're going to want to have these ladies in your corner. Welcome to the show. I have I'm choking on my own throat. McKenna Dodge and Charissa Higgins. You guys are so cool. Welcome. Thank you guys for being on the I Hardly Know Her podcast.
So excited to be here with
Yay. I want to like jump right into a couple things. First of all, I think it's worth sharing that McKenna has recently finished the infamous 75 Hard, which I started, and then I've started 2 more times. And then she gave the best message in a group chat the other day that was like, it doesn't matter how many times you start. It's because it's for you. It's for us. And I feel like a lot of my goals in life are very reliant, or have been very reliant on outside feedback, or like validation, especially because it's like events that I put on that I need people to attend, or, different things like that. But first of all, congratulations, McKenna. And I know you have like some really cool stuff. So we'll make sure to tag both Charissa and McKenna's socials, because she also did a live stream about some of the top things that she learned from doing that. But like, how are you feeling? Like, you radiate joy and awesomeness in general. Are you still doing it? I mean, are you kind of still doing the flow? Is this a new habits? Like what's something that you can, I don't know.
Yeah. So after 75 Hard, the creator of 75 Hard, which is the mental fortitude challenge, if you're not familiar with that, it's essentially 75 days of 6 activities. You have to do each activity every single day. If you miss an activity, you start back over at day 1 and try it again. So I finished my 75 days. And the creator, Andy, I think his last name is Frisella. I might have mispronounced that. I've seen it written, not said. Anyway, 75 Hard is actually the first step in his longer year-long program called Live Hard. So after 75 Hard completed, I moved over or stepped over into what's called phase 1. And it's essentially a continuation of 75 Hard, the same activities, however, including in some additional steps, including 10 minutes of visualization a day, cold shower every day, which I'm not going to lie, I am the least excited about anything, this 5-minute cold shower every day. And then 3 critical tasks. So focusing on whatever is critical to you, whether it's in your business, your personal life, family relationships, whatever that is, kind of habit stacking those on to all of the amazing habits that you've already built in your health, your wellness, workout, nutrition plan, progress picture, personal development, all of those things from 75 Hard, continuing to build some additional activities on top of those to continue moving through. So I'm in phase 1 in the next 30 days. Thankfully, if I make any mistakes, if I make any oopsies and miss something, I don't have to go all the way back to the beginning of 75 Hard. I would just go back to the beginning of phase 1, which I'm a little bit grateful for, not going to lie. And I am on day 3 of phase 1.
Okay. Wow. Oh, there's even more depth. I've heard about 75 Hard a lot. And then I'm like, having tried it a little bit, I'm like, oh no, this is like it's so intense, but there's a lot of things we have to do to shift into the person that we want to be in order to achieve those types of things. Right. And a little shout out now to Charissa. One of my favorite things about watching your social media is you are such high energy. I love your dance videos. I love you're just vibing. Your lighting is always great. It looks like you just want to go hang out at your house and have a dance party with you.
Yeah.
So I'm coming. If we didn't live so far away, we probably would have already had some kind of a dance party. But what is there, summer is coming to a close. Has there been anything that was like a particular focus for you that you really have leaned into during the summer months or something, I don't know, just that you're excited about right now?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say there's anything that I leaned more into. I mean, I guess maybe I did, now that I'm saying that out loud. I leaned more into being very, very intentional with my time, with my girls. So this summer definitely stretched me. It was lots of things going on. So many things going on with kids, business, hubby, there's a lot. So I've really learned to be intentional with my kids need my attention. My husband needs my attention just as much as my business. So really trying to create that space this summer. And it was hard. It was really hard. I felt like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions, but I also had a lot of breakthroughs with my family of what I'm creating and my big vision here. So I did lean into that more, and we had such great weekends together, just us focusing on us. And dancing more, actually bringing my girls into my dancing videos. Girls, come on, let's dance together. So there's been a lot more dance with them because they enjoy it. My whole family loves to dance. We're nerds. We geek out about music and dancing. So yeah, that's what I definitely leaned into this summer as a business owner or someone stepping into creating their business. That's a really hard thing to navigate. Time, commitment, where you can put that focus time. So
oh, I'm sure none of the listeners can relate to that.
No,
the balancing of things. This is a new red alert, a news flash. No, I think it's so important though to I think about a lot of the books and different things that I fill my mind with. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I've heard this before. And then recently I've been like, wait a minute, I need to keep hearing this. And I love hearing the same concepts by different people and their slightly different perspective or what their way to apply the tool is. And, one of the things that's really interesting is the way that you say something is going to resonate at just the right time for someone who happens to catch that reel. And the fun way that you deliver, and each of all are our different way to show up. That's why it's so important on really what branding is. So let's transition into how does someone decide what their brand is, how they're wanting to show up? What is some of that very first groundwork elements that people need to consider when they are embarking into this space?
who wants to go first?
Go for it, Tessa.
I say this all the time. Branding isn't a thing. It's an embodiment of who you are. It's an embodiment of the people you serve, and it's embodiment of your entire life. It is a feeling, and it's not just a feeling online. Like we're like, oh my gosh, I have to brand myself online, right? How am I going to make people feel online? But it's in everyday life, in IRL. I've been hearing IRL all the time, so I had to
Oh
say it.
yeah.
IRL. You are branding yourself. The first time you meet somebody, they are already looking at you. And we always say, like, as much as I hate to say people don't judge a book by its cover, we're humans and we do. So the moment that you see someone new that you've never met, you're looking at them and you're already saying, do I vibe with this person? How does she dress? She kind of looks like she'd be fun. She kind of looks like she'd be a little rebel like myself. Ooh, I just heard her talk and she just used the F word. Okay, she's definitely my people. Like she has a brand and you are deciding, do I want to go meet this brand or not? So it is completely a feeling that you are creating online in real life in every conversation. And it's an embodiment of who you are and what you are here to create with all your values, your beliefs, and your perspectives. And that is the part that takes a lot of deeper work and conversation with yourself to understand what you want your brand to look like. And after you have that conversation, then we talk about your offers and how your offers embody your brand and how you can communicate those as a whole, if that makes sense.
Well, and it plays in for business owners as well, that, it's like Charissa said, this embodiment of who you are and how you want to show up, and also how you want to impact, especially for, a lot of our network are online coaches or affiliate marketers, network marketers, that kind of thing. And really helping them to step into who they are and also how they want to serve others, how they want to impact others through their offers, through the value that they provide on social media, through the way that they coach people or they serve, or the products that they sell, or the programs that they offer. It's kind of this combination of who you are, who you serve, and how you want to create impact in the space. So the foundation that Charissa and I start with is this concept of your movement. What is the movement you want to create in the space? What is that driving force of the way that you want to create that positive change in the lives of others? And how do you show up with that movement in mind, that people are like, yes, I want to be a part of this. How can I work with you? How can I be a part of this larger impact in the online space, in the world, in your industry, in your niche, like in your local hometown, wherever it is that you are starting this movement, that people are wanting to join in and rally behind this and be a part of something bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. My head's spinning here on a few things, because we're talking about things that we hear you. I think everyone's hearing the words you're saying. And then I'm also realizing that it can be really difficult. To bring both those things together, because we're talking about our personalness, right? And then when we're crossing over into the business space, and really obviously the most positive impact that we can make is when those are very much in line with each other, right? And how the heck do we work through it when some people don't know? Like, I know that, like, from some of my coaching clients, they don't know what their thing is. Like, we have a lot of times projections on us of things that have been like just the way we have been, because that's how we've been conditioned. So, like, how do we even just unpack that? Because, like, not everyone just steps in and is like, oh, by the way, because I know, like, you guys are like, you like to ask, what is something that is like someone's superpower? What is their biggest superpower, and how do they hone in on that? I know a lot of people, a lot of women specifically, who don't know for sure. Like, they can't see how amazing they
Yes. I'm like, look at me. Yes. So
Help
you
us.
well, you do this as well for your clients. I know you do. McKenna and I do it for ours, but we are that mirror that we reflect back what we tell them, what we see, right? So when there's people who come to us, and I talk to so many women, it's like, how are you so confident? How do you show up? And I was like, well, I did the deeper work. I wasn't always like this. I was scared. I would have never come on this podcast probably 7 years ago. No, you could not pay me enough money to come do this, right? But when you have someone in your space who is giving you the permission and safety to open up, like, simply McKenna and I will tell people to tell us their story. What is their story? As they're telling their story, we dig deeper because they don't want to go there. They kind of skip over that part. So we simply dig deeper. And as we're hearing these things, like, we are reflecting back how fucking amazing they are, like how brilliant they are. Like, they don't think this is a big deal. It's a huge deal. So simply giving people a space to open up, which I know you do too. You probably understand this really well. Like, they are able to understand where they were, where they are now, and how amazing that journey has been. And it hasn't been easy, and the struggles they've been through, and what they can teach people that they didn't even realize they could teach people. And it's really a beautiful experience to see when it's literally women just telling their stories and us pointing out those blind spots that they never saw in themselves.
And it's, sometimes some people take a little bit more guiding than others. So some people are very open and very fluent and very in touch with, you know, their emotions or their story or their feelings or things, and they can share. And most of the time in the process of sharing that and verbalizing it, they have realizations about the way that they want to show up or the way that they want to impact. And others of our clients are a little more closed off. They've never really thought about it. They've never really dived. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Dove. There we go.
Divin? Maybe divin? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. English is complicated at 9:30 in the morning.
It is.
So that they've never really dove into that before. And so what Charissa and I are there to do is to not give them the answer. It's to ask questions as they're sharing their story, and as we notice things, as they say something or they stumble on something, and then they're kind of like, and then they like move on, and we're like, hey, tell me about that. And asking, usually it's a lot of why and how questions.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people want to focus on what was my story? What did I do? What didn't I do? What am I wanting to do now? Instead, we ask why. Why is this important to you? How did this experience impact the way that you want to show up or the way that you want to help others? You know, why is this particular facet of your story something that caused you to want to show up differently, or to cause, again, like coming back to that change, that impact, that ripple effect on other people's lives? And in diving deep into why and how, it really helps our clients to uncover less about what they want to do and more about why it's important to them. And that's where weaving in their story, their experiences, their personality, their values, their zone of expertise, their zone of brilliance, it helps to bring all of these different elements together into this personal brand that they're creating in the space. And then when we look at adding in offers, it's less about, well, what do I sell? And it's more about, why did I choose to sell this thing, given that this is the impact that I want to have on other people's lives?
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because business is like, you don't just naturally say when you start a business, well, I'm going to tell myself my story. Like, I'm going to tell myself my story and see where it goes. Because even if you did, which most of us don't do that, we don't think about that in the beginning, right? Even if we did, it would be very surface level, and it wouldn't hit where it needed to hit, right? We're very surface level with our stories because, once again, we don't see what others see in ourselves, right? So when you have that ability to share your story with someone else, it's amazing. And this is the foundational work that you said in the very beginning. Like, this is the foundation of everything you do in your business. And I believe it is the lifeblood of your entrepreneur spirit. I truly believe that, because within that foundation, it's holding all of the parts of you that you already have been stretched, right? You've already had to move through, learn, and grow toward the vision that you are creating. So this holds so much power as you are creating your business and your offers and really showing up boldly in your brand, because without that foundation, you will be lost. You'll feel lost. And you're like, why isn't this strategy working? Why aren't I talking to the right people? Why are my conversations feeling so bull? Because you don't have that foundation built.
And it's amazing, even outside of business as well, for those who are, you know, considering entrepreneurship, or they're like, I don't have a business, but this concept of finding your story and who am I and how do I want to impact even outside of a business. It's really cool to dive into these exercises. This, what is my story? Why was this significant? How did this impact the way that I want to show up in the space? Is really beneficial as well in helping you figure out your personal brand. We in our programs and things, we tie a lot of business in with that personal brand. As you uncover your personal brand, you are also more confident in yourself, even in other areas outside of your business, in the way that you show up, in setting boundaries, in your relationships, in the way that you show up at your job, even if your job is staying home with your kids, right? Like, how are you showing up differently? Because you know who you are, you're confident in who you are, and you know how you add value into the lives of others, even outside of a business opportunity or a product or an offer or whatever. So one of the things that Charissa and I notice, both for our clients and for ourselves, is this concept of the rising tide lifts all ships. As you become more clear and confident in who you are and how you want to show up in the world, it changes the way that you show up in all areas as well.
Sure. Do you ever come across people who are like, oh, I know there's something, and like they're but really clueless about where to start? And maybe that's just in public speaking land. I feel that a lot. Like some people are like, oh my gosh, I know I'm supposed to be on stage, and they're resisting it. And it's like, that's exactly why you're supposed to be doing it, is if something is pulling you.
I think if you feel that pull, for sure, it's telling you something. At least go check it out. Like, why am I feeling this pull towards something?
Well, I think there's an element of fear sometimes. What we see in our clients is they, have this passion and they have this dream, but they're like, am I worthy of that? Like, am I capable of that? Like, that seems like it's for other people who are more skilled or more experienced or whatever than me. Like, kind of this little fish in a big pond kind of feeling of like, who am I to want to show up in this way? Or who am I to want to, speak on stage or create massive impact or, become a leader in my space? Like, who am I to do these things? And, I know this is relevant for all people in some way or another. Me personally, I am both a resident of the perfectionist camp as well as the overthinkers camp. It's a really beautiful combination of chaos and challenge. So what that means is when I feel intimidated about something, my perfectionism kicks in hardcore because I'm like, oh gosh, well, if I can't nail it on the first try, like I'm not even going to bother, which doesn't work. You try new things. Like, obviously you're not going to succeed at all of them. But my perfectionism brain is like, nah, we're not going to do it. We're going to pregame the thing. I was that like weirdo who YouTubed my first dance lesson before I went to my first beginner dance lesson so that I wouldn't know absolutely nothing, even though the whole point of the first dance lesson is that you know nothing. Welcome to perfectionism. And then the overthinking kicks in on top of that of like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what if that? And we psych ourselves out and we're like, forget it. I'm not even going to try. So when we get kind of like Charissa said, this concept of tuning out the rest of the world, tuning out the what if it could go wrong, tuning out the comparison-itis of, well, I'm just new in this journey, but all these other people are so much farther ahead of me. They've been doing this for 10s or, 20s of years, or, they have so much experience, or they have this big following. And it's like, but you have something unique and something special. And we have to tune out the outside world. And so that's part of what Charissa and I are doing is weeding and pulling away all of that assumptions and stereotypes and all of these things that are put on people by society, and helping them to turn inwards and kind of being that mirror, that reflection of helping them to see in themselves why. Again, it comes why and how, the most important questions, like, why does this matter so much to you? And being that mirror for them to work through it internally. And when that why is strong enough, that desire to create positive change is strong enough, it allows you to overcome that fear or that doubt. And that's not to say it's not going to be challenging, but it kind of gives the space for you to step into who you want to be even if it's scary, even if it feels like a lot, even if you're like, I'm not sure if I'm actually qualified to be speaking on this or teaching this or showing up in this way. It gives you the clarity and confidence to be like, that's okay. I may only change one life today, but that's a life that I changed for somebody. And that's what matters.
This brought up, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who she's an artist. She's really good at painting, like and all sorts of painting. And we were having a conversation and I asked her, I was like, why do you like painting? And she goes, I don't know. I'm really good at it. I've always been good at it. I was like, oh, well, what is it? What is the bigger story behind the painting? Like, what does it make you feel when you're creating this painting? Because I love all of them. And she goes, well, I don't know. I guess it allows people to be heard and understood without words. And I go, well, tell me more about that. Like, where are we going here? Like, this is beautiful. And she's an introvert, and she loves the fact that when she can design or paint her picture with feelings in mind, and others can come and soak in this feeling and almost put themselves in this like quiet place to think about, oh my gosh, like this is the feeling I'm having right now, and I totally relate. And they're telling themselves a story and helping them through painting without her having to be in this big room speaking in front of people. And I was like, that is a mission in its own. Like, this is a beautiful story. I was like, do you tell this to people? And she goes, no. And I said, you need to be sharing this side of your story, because so many people who have that same fear, but they want to be able to impact, like,
Yeah.
So that just reminded me of that story. Like, there's so much more to it, and you have to understand it and be open to asking those questions for sure.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. How often are people working through a process? They're sharing their stories, they're putting together these dots. How often are they like surprised when they're learning about the awesome things that they can do?
Honestly, more often than not, because a lot of the times we so very much generalize the things that we're good at. It's our normal. It's our like, oh, I've just always been good at this. And Charissa and I step in as that mirror, and we're like, okay, but like, are other people good at this? And they're like, well, no, I'm usually the best in my friend group, or, I'm exceptional at this. And they have this realization that it really truly is a gift of theirs that they never considered a gift because they just assumed it was average. We're always our own worst critics. We always downplay our own successes and wins and strengths and these kinds of things. And so this combination of discovering your gifts, your strengths, your zone of brilliance, in combination with diving into your story and pulling out different insights or perspectives that you may not have considered before, and asking these deeper questions. A lot of us don't make a habit of asking, like, how did this thing that I did in middle school, or how did, this event or this interaction that I had with a client, 16 years ago or 6 months ago, change the dynamic of the way that I wanted to engage with my clients, or the way that I wanted to show up, or the impact that I wanted to have. And I think, honestly, the biggest surprise comes when we get to the end of this process, because what Charissa and I do on our coaching calls within our program is our clients think that we're just interviewing them. We're asking them to share their story. We're engaging with them. We're asking questions, the why, the how. And we get to the end of this process, and I'm going to totally like spill the beans. If any of y'all like come into our program, hey, this is what we do later. So at the end of this process, I pull up this document where I've been taking notes of all of these key components, phrases, things that they're saying, emotions that they are experiencing or that they're evoking in us or in our other clients, or things that we recognize, like that is truly a gift. And I pull up this document at the end of this like interview process. And, our clients had the opportunity to talk through it all. So they're like, okay. Yeah, feels good. And then I pull up their words and show them back their words, quite literally a mirror. And so many of them just have this moment of silence, of wonder, of sometimes a little awestruck. And they're like, that came out of me. And we're like, that came out of you. And it's not uncommon for us to have clients who cry on the call as they have this realization of, oh my God, this is so much bigger than I ever allowed myself to dream or to realize the impact I want to have, you know, or the way that it's put into words. We reflect back their words to them in a way that they can see the power of what they said. And it's not Charissa and I telling them what their brand is. It's us asking them questions and then documenting their responses and being like, here's what you just said. And they're like, what? So it's absolutely phenomenal. And I remember this one gal that we worked with that she introduced herself, for example, as a weightlifting coach. And we're like, okay, tell me more, right? There's like a bazillion weightlifting coaches on the internet at any given time. And, you know, sparing the details here to keep things expedient. We walked her through these questions in this process. And what it turned into is in sharing her story and her experiences and being this petite little scrawny thing her whole life. And she's like, you know, women don't have to live their entire lives like that. By the end of this, we gave back to her the words that she used, the words that she said. It changed from, yeah, I'm a weightlifting coach for women to I teach women that they can do and lift big things.
Ooh.
And we gave that back to her. And she was like, that's exactly it. That's exactly what I haven't had the words to describe in all the years that I've been doing this online, offline. She was like, and it was her words. It wasn't anything that Charissa and I made up, but it was helping guide her through the process of uncovering it for herself.
It's beautiful.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, that brings in the word of unmistakable, because once people know how to use words that they didn't realize they already had, because it is hard for us to see things when we're so up close and personal, I guess, with all the things that are swirling around in our brains. So what's prompted unmistakable? When did that kind of come as like, oh my gosh, that's the thing? And what does that mean to your clients? What does it mean to us individually?
I believe it's just a representation of really your authenticity, your audacity to show up fully as you. And it really truly is about that piece that we just talked about, your story, how to communicate and finding those words that speak to you, understanding those values that you actually have that you didn't know you had, like all the things that revolve around really understanding your story and why you're here. And that piece right there is the only piece that is going to differentiate you from everybody else. And that's the truth, because there's so many people doing the same thing as you, which isn't a bad thing. It just means we have to tap into that more. We have to show up more potent with ourselves and really sell why we do it differently than others. So that's that unmistakable piece, as well as every single person who comes into our program is impacting in a slightly different way. And that impact also becomes unmistakable because it's a little different than everybody else, like the story behind why you want to impact. So that's what I believe is the unmistakable piece. And plus, I mean, it's just a really powerful word.
It takes it one step farther from just stand out in the space, right? Stand out. We hear this all the time, right? Stand out on social, right? Stand out from the sea of sameness, right? Stand out from the noise, right? But there's a difference between standing out and being like, oh yeah, Megan, she does speaking or something, right? She stands out from everybody who's not doing speaking. Unmistakable is about how do you create, kind of in Kinsey's words, right? Like this category of one. How do you create your own brand that doesn't just stand out from everybody else doing different things? How do you stand out? How do you create this unparalleled presence from even the people who are doing the same thing as you, but people recognize what's different or unique about how you do it? What is different or unique about how Megan teaches people to speak on stage through ovation, as opposed to, like this with, knowing Megan and having had her on our show, this combination of, you know, the stand up with speaking, with all of these different traits and stories and all of these things that Megan has, for example,
Mm.
as opposed to just like, oh yeah, she like teaches people to speak on stage or something. It's like, what does Megan do that is so different and unique, and how she teaches and how she incorporates and how she coaches her clients that not only stands out from like, you know, Charissa and I, who don't do the same thing, but people recognize her. Or for the listeners, right? Like, people recognize you, not just for what you do, but for the impact that you have, for the method that you use to teach this, for your heart, your values, your personality, the way that you show up online, that completely stands apart from anyone else, even in a crowded niche, even in a crowded industry. Even if you have a small following, people are not just like, oh yeah, Megan, the speaker girl. They're like, Megan, like the stand-up comedian who hosts Ovation and teaches people da 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 da. They're like, they know you. Like, do a double take. They're like, oh my God, that's Megan, right? Like, that's unmistakability. Offline, on social media, wherever it is that you're building. It's not just about standing out from everyone else. It's creating your own category within your industry or within your niche.
Yeah, and I love the one thing when I first met you, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's a comedian. Like, she's a comedian. And I love, it's almost like this contradiction that you
Why isn't
have.
she ever funny? That's what you were asking yourself. She said they said she's a comedian, but she's just like so serious and cries a lot on coaching calls.
But that's what stood out. I was like, there's this cool thing about Megan. Like, she is this comedian. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, they're just funny class clowns. You know what people stereotypically say about comedians, but you are so not that. And you have this beautiful caring spirit, and like you said, crying. Yes, like let's cry together. But it's such a beautiful contradiction that you have here. And that's what I was drawn to. And that's kind of your unmistakable piece. I'm like, I love this about Megan, because I just haven't met any other comedian quite with your personality. I don't know. It's cool. It's cool.
Well, I think that, thank you. First of all, thank you for the compliment. And I think that this is why it's so valuable. And I hope that this is one of the things that the listeners glean from this conversation is it's really important for us to have people who can mirror the things back, because sometimes when we can't quite see it, I have had such a challenging journey of trying to figure out exactly how to execute on the things that I think I'm good at, that I know I'm good at, and then also make sure those are also the things I love to do, because there's a difference, right? And spending our time doing something that is really in alignment with what we want to be doing and is our superpower and is our like highest contribution to the world. And I need people to remind me of that. Like, an alarming amount of people have had to remind me sometimes, because I just, you know, and I think adaptability being one of my strong suits has also been a weakness of mine, because I'll sometimes go chasing after things, right? And this just goes to show too that within each industry, there's like a thing that we think we know about the industry, and then there's actually a lot we don't know. And when you're in the industry, like comedy, which Jeanette, my producer, and my partner in Improv Team Culture, I don't know if she's done as much in the stand-up land, but I've done both stand-up and improv, and seen, like, when you spend a lot of time around other comedians and you realize the depth and the sorrow and the mental wellness journeys and all these different things, right? And comedy is a vessel for bringing healing and connection and understanding. Sometimes it's used to make fun of people and in not as a productive way, but you can choose to do that with whatever you want. You know, any industry is going to have like the people who are elevating it. They're thriving in a positive and productive space, even though things are challenging. And then there's people who kind of weaponize, probably in any industry. But anyway, I digress. One of the things I was thinking about as you guys were talking about, you know, mirroring for your clients and hearing these really great breakthroughs. How do you guys do this for each other when you're working together in your own curriculums? How do you make sure you're holding yourselves accountable to receive this type of stuff, to make sure that you're continuing to stay on the edge of your deliverables?
I think we do. I think sometimes we call each other out like, what's going on here, right? Like, I'm noticing this, or, I think you're struggling because of this. Like I think we definitely offer that mirror to each other as well, which is, um, sometimes it's like, oh, shoot, right? And other times it's like, oh, that's what it was. Like, yeah, I think we do.
I think it's very similar to our clients, where sometimes you're so close to the trees that you can't see the forest. So having each other, this partnership dynamic that we have within our coaching program, that whether we realize that we are experiencing, that one or the other of us, whether like if I realize that like I'm struggling with something, but I can't quite put my finger on it, and be like, yo, Charissa, like help me with the thing. Or sometimes you don't even realize that you have a blind spot, by extension of it being a blind spot. And you're like, I'm struggling and I don't know what it is. And the other person, of course, like just kind of turns that mirror a little bit and have you thought about this? And you're like mind blown, like, right. Yeah, that probably has a big piece to do with it. I guess I have some healing work, or I have some journaling, or I've got, whatever that I want to work on or dive into, or, like, I mean, that's probably it, but I'm not really sure. And then we'll ask each other questions and like help each other to uncover this. Admittedly, it's a little easier with our clients because, you can stay very disconnected from it in terms of kind of maintaining that like neutral third party. And, right. Two of us to help one client. So we have two different perspectives and two different sets of ears that are listening and watching and, these kinds of things. Perhaps maybe a little bit more challenging when it's one directly to one, but it's absolutely like, other than just getting to work with Charissa, who's fucking phenomenal anyway, one of my favorite parts of getting to work with her is having this really cool give and take dynamic and supporting each other almost as much as we support our clients, which is really amazing.
That's so good. So as we kind of bring this to a close here, I'm curious, two things. The first one is, how often are people, when they finally like start doing the thing, whatever the business idea is or whatever thing they think they want to do, how often is it totally different from what they've been doing, like jobs they've had or whatever? Is it like usually in alignment, but not on their own? Are they already kind of on the right track in the right industry? Or is it like, oh my gosh, you've been spending the last 15 years working in XYZ industry and you love doing this? What the hell are you doing?
I think it kind of depends on the client. And I know that it's also changed over time. So as we've gotten more clear about who we work with and how we can best serve the clients that we do, a lot of the times our clients, in the last year or so, they know kind of what they want to do, but they don't know how to clearly and confidently articulate it within their content to themselves, to really figure out in words. They have a lot of like abstract feelings and emotions and desires and things. And so our job is really just helping them put that into words. When we first started, of course, everyone's a beginner at some point or another. As Charissa and I were new a couple of years ago, sometimes we would get people in who, were much more indecisive. They were much more like, pick at this, pick at that, and over this process, it wasn't usually that they were doing something completely opposite of what they really wanted to do. It's that they weren't at a point yet where they were fully leaning into what they wanted to do because of fear or because of unclarity or because they weren't confident that they could really do the thing that was on their heart. And so it was more of helping them to weed out the things that weren't and kind of shine the spotlight on the thing that is. And they already knew about it most of the time. It wasn't completely opposite from what they were doing. It was just helping them realize that this is truly the thing that I'm passionate about and that I want to show up with.
Yeah. What does that do for their energy? Like, so when people do start getting into this flow and having that clarity, what do you observe? Like, what does this mean for someone to step into this new season of alignment?
Well, I mean, it really unclouds your brain, right? I mean, if you're trying to pack in all these things that you think you need to be doing or you have this one vision that you really want to be doing, but you're like, I'm not good enough, so I'm just going to do all these side jobs until I'm good enough to do this thing, right? Like when you're clouding your head with all of this stuff, you can't make decisions and you can't think clearly because there's too many things going through your head at that point, right? So when we can really hear what their vision is and where their passion lies and where they want to go all in on, they get clarity in their presence. They get clarity in what they need to be sharing. And like you said, now they can share the same thing over and over, like just different perspectives, different ways, sharing the same thing over and over. And that brings more ease to their business. And when you are bringing more ease into your business, your community feels that. They're like, oh my gosh, now she's on fire. She's on point. Like she knows what the hell she's doing now. Like it is contagious. So when you can get there, it's, once again, the unmistakable part of it comes in, but that clarity is so powerful and can help you create some of the best things, but it's hard to get there. You need help with the clarity.
Well, and with that clarity, like Charissa said, it comes that confidence, it comes that boldness, and it brings this whole new energy. So, at the beginning, like when you introduced us, it's about becoming unmistakable as a leader. And one of the things that we find is that our clients, they find the clarity, they find the confidence, they find really their true selves, how they want to show up, how they want to create impact. And they step into that leadership and they become bold and they take up space and they're not afraid to share their perspectives, their thoughts, their stories. Like they really, truly, like Charissa said, embody every facet of who they are and how they want to impact. And it creates this magnetism where they start attracting in the people who are like them, the people who want to work with them, the people who are like, I want to be around you in whatever capacity that looks like, because they are showing up as that truest version of themselves with their heart, leading with their heart in the way that they want to serve others, becomes magnetic to the people who are looking for what they have. And so especially from, in our case, we focus in that brand positioning, helping you step into leadership, even in a crowded niche, even if your industry is super saturated, or even if you have a small following. How can you truly become unmistakable in the space and grow your business organically? So it really is this combination of giving them everything that they thought they needed from someone else to succeed and helping them realize that they already had it. They just didn't know how to put it into words. And then helping them to find a way to put themselves on a stage, whether it's an actual stage or, the stage of their social media presence, and be so confident in who they are and how they impact that they're no longer worried about the fear, or at least it's severely diminished. They're no longer worried about if they're qualified. They fully own who they are, where they're at in their journey, and exactly the people that they can help because of where they're at in their journey. And so they start showing up as the leader that sometimes they never thought that they could be. And in the meantime, they're changing lives all the way, which is the thing that's the most significant for Charissa and I. It's not just that we're changing our clients' lives. It's that we know that by helping them, there's going to be this ripple effect, like throwing a pebble into a lake, where they are now going to go out and change more people's lives for the better. And it just, it just, the domino effect,
Oh yeah, totally. Oh, that's so good. I love the energy. I love all of the things that are being brought up here. Thank you guys so much for bringing your wisdom, your just like really powerful nuggets that I think are going to bring a lot of excitement to people that are listening. And I also saw Jeanette was saying in the last several minutes, she's like, oh, I feel this in my bones. So yes, thank you guys so much for bringing this. Now, any of you listeners out there, if you would like to connect with McKenna and or Charissa, you can find them easily by just searching them up, because the internet is super easy. Their joint stuff is Learn, Earn, Impact on both Facebook and Instagram. We'll make sure to drop the links, of course, in the show notes. So make sure and click there if you want to connect. These are the type of ladies that you want filling your social media feed. I love reading your stories. I love just the presence. I mean, you guys are living the stuff that you're teaching, which is most excellent. And yeah, for those of you that are out there listening and maybe feeling like you do know what you want to be doing, you're kind of on that right trajectory, and it's just like, what do I say? How do I articulate it better? These are your gals. So very much appreciate you guys carving out some time to join me on the podcast today. And folks too, if you guys are out there wanting to get on the big stages and refine a signature speech, you know I'm your girl. All of the goodies that we have coming up. There's an upcoming event, actually November 15th, if it's in the Boise area, but if you don't live nearby, hop on a cheap flight, make the arrangements to get here. It's called CAPTIVATE Leadership Communications Summit. We're going to have excellent speakers, all sorts of insights on being a leader. And this, I intentionally named it this because everyone needs to be a leader. Like a lot of these things that you gals were just talking about really further emphasizes that is that it's not just a role you have in a corporate office. It's not the thing that we just have been it's like a throwaway word almost in some ways, because we think only certain people have the right or the assignment to use it. And leadership is something we need as many people to feel empowered by as possible. And when we can communicate well, that helps us in our individual personal lives, in our branding. It helps us to be better collaborators in the workplace. If we go punch in at an office or if we run our own company, it does not matter. I'm trying to think of the ways to like help educate people that we are all leaders and we can all be empowered with better communication. I want to be a good leader in my own home for all my tiny humans, or not so tiny. My 16-year-old is like a head taller than me now, but like I don't want any of you any of you leaders out there, any of you listeners out there to discount your ability to lead, as even if it's leading yourself to be a better individual and then letting it ripple out to everyone else. I mean, I see some heads nodding in here in the gallery, so I must be on the right.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I hear this all the time, especially from mamas. They're like, when they step into like, okay, I'm going into this, I'm going to go do this, but I'm not a leader yet. And I go, are you leading your family? Are you in charge of all the 8,000 things that are going on during the day? Are you still making dinner? Are you cleaning the house? Are you doing all these things and you're getting them done? Are you telling the hubby to go do this? You're a leader. You are a leader already. You just don't see it. Like, that's hard work. That is hard work to lead all the things that go on in your family. And you are front and center. You.
I'm going to just start calling all of my listeners leaders from now on. All right, leaders. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Check out the connections again to McKenna and Charissa in the show notes. Thank you again for listening to the I Hardly Know Her podcast. And remember that wherever you are in life, you don't have to be a big deal to do big things. So giddy on up and just do things that make you happy. Thank you again for both of you for being on today's episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the I Hardly Know Her podcast. For information about leadership workshops, public speaker training, and all things Kooky Megan, check out improvteamculture.com. We'll catch you next time.